I'm special.
All right, we're going to bring this County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If we all stand for the invocation, Commissioner Lotzenheiser.
Let's bow in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for bringing us here tonight. We thank you for the beautiful weather. We thank you for this incredible community. Lord, we just ask that you give this board guidance and wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Barnes.
Here.
Commissioner Mulder. Commissioner Augustine.
Here.
Commissioner Haskell.
Here.
Commissioner Pearl Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Youngquist. Commissioner Moudry.
Here.
Commissioner Brailer.
Here.
Commissioner Drosha.
Here.
Commissioner Toomey.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Lotzenheiser. Commissioner Holmes.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers. Chairman Mott.
Here. Are there any addition or changes to the agenda?
There is one change, and that is to move limited public comment after new business.
Move the agenda as amended.
Or
The agenda's been moved by Commissioner Toomey and supported by Commissioner Pearl Wright. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have communications, and we have none. So we're going to move on. What? Minutes? Okay. Minutes, you're moving the minutes. Good, thank you. Supported by Lotzenheiser, or moved by Commissioner Lotzenheiser, supported by Commissioner Moudry. Now we have, oh, geez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Getting off to a good start. All those opposed? Motion carries. Now we are at communications, and we have none. All right, next up, we have 3 retirement recognition resolutions, and I would move those.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Augustine. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. We have 2 of the retirees here tonight. So, first up, we're going to do Tracy. Gordnier. All right. Eaton County Board of Commissioners, resolution of appreciation for Tracy Gordnier, Treasurer's Office, July 17th, 2024. Whereas Tracy Gordnier will be retiring from the Eaton County on July 31st, 2024, and whereas Tracy worked in the Treasurer's Office on as a Deputy Treasurer from August 5th, 1996, and then as Chief Deputy Treasurer from January 11th, 2015, and is retiring with more than 27 years of service. And whereas Tracy has provided dedicated and honorable service to the residents and employees of Eaton County, and whereas the Eaton County Board of Commissioners seeks to recognize and express appreciation for Tracy's years of public service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners expresses its sincere gratitude for the years of exceptional service Tracy provided to Eaton County. And be it further resolved that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and attached to the permanent record of the county on this 17th day of the month of July in the year 2024. Thank you.
If I could just speak for a moment, I'll try to get through this without choking up. I'd like to ask Team Treasury to join me up here for a moment, if they will. I see they're all snuck in the back row there. This is really a bittersweet, as they say. I know that's cliche, but it's really appropriate in this situation. It's sweet because we all know Tracy, and she has a great family. She has some wonderful grandchildren, and she's got terrific friends. And we just know that she's going to have a fantastic and terrific retirement. And we really hope her every hope and joy. It's bitter, if at all, because we are losing 28 years of experience with Tracy. I will share with you that she is the single most experienced chief deputy treasurer in the state of Michigan. And we have been blessed to have her here in Eaton County. Her work ethic is unparalleled, and she's the hardest working, most honest person that I've ever encountered. She has been the high performance quarterback of Team Treasury for 12 years as Chief Deputy Treasurer. The Team Treasury has prepared a plaque of gratitude for you, Tracy. I'd just like to read it. It's real quick. The Eaton County Treasurer's Office, on behalf of the people of Eaton County, expresses gratitude and thanks to Chief Deputy Treasurer Tracy Gordonier for 28 years of excellence. We wish you all the best in retirement. Team Treasury, and it's signed by everyone in the office. So, thank you, Tracy.
Okay. This is hard for me. So I've been with the county for 28 years and only in the treasurer's office. I was hired by Al Starr, and when he retired, Bill Connerton was my boss for 15 years. Oh, gosh, sorry. Bob Robinson became treasurer in 2013 and appointed me as his chief deputy. I would like to thank Bob, as he saw something in me that I did not know was there. Prior to this position, I was reserved, and talking in front of an audience like this would never have happened. Again, thank you, Bob. I would like to thank the girls in my office, Amy Ide, Crystal Smith, Dawn Paul, and Sharon Weaver Floyd. They are the hardest working group I have had the pleasure to work with. They are a team in every sense of the word. They truly work as a team, helping each other out with their focus on getting the job done and taking care of our customers. It has been a pleasure and an honor, and I am privileged to have been their second boss. I have enjoyed my time in the treasurer's office. When I look at retiring, I look at what I have accomplished for the office. I feel I have made an impact on making it a better place to work. I have changed a lot of the processes which make the office more productive, created job duties so everyone is able to follow directions on a particular task within the office, and cleaned the vault downstairs, which was a major feat. If you had seen what the space looked like, you would understand. Because of the items I have put in place, I know the treasurer's office will be in fine condition when I leave. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Jody Strang. So this one, I known for a long time. We grew up together.
We were on the same bus.
We rode the same bus, went to school together. Their family and our family were friends, and so I did not realize you were here this long.
I started when I was 16.
All right. Resolution of appreciation for Jody Strang, Prosecutor's Office, July 17th, 2024. Whereas Jody Strang will be retiring from the Eaton County on August 14th, 2024. And whereas Jody worked in the prosecutor's office as a legal assistant from November 9th, 1988, and then a victim advocate in 1999, was promoted to the victim witness coordinator in 2017, and is retiring with more than 35 years of service. And whereas Jody has provided dedicated and honorable service to the residents and employees of Eaton County, And whereas the Eaton County Board of Commissioners seeks to recognize and express appreciation for Jody's years of public service, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners expresses its sincere gratitude for the years of exceptional service Jody provided to Eaton County. And be it further resolved that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and attached to the permanent records of the county on this 17th day of the month of July in the year 2024. Thank you for your.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jody, first off, there's no plaque tonight because you still got another month of work left, and so we'll talk about that next month, maybe.
Okay.
All right, good. Jody is the perfect example of what we hope to get as an employee. Jody was born here in Eaton County. She grew up here. She married here. She actually has her husband Troy, her son and her daughter here tonight, as well as her son's girlfriend. They raised their family here. They've been a part of the community for, 42 years now? Yeah, 42 years that you've lived, that you've been alive.
42 plus.
42 plus, yeah. And Jody served under 3 prosecutors, Mike Hawking, Jeff Sauter, and then myself. For those of you, such as Joe Brailer, who have been around a while, you know that those were 3 different styles that Jody had to deal with. But her desire to do a great job never changed. During this time, she grew as an employee, rising in the ranks, with spending the last 7 years as my victim witness coordinator. And being a local served my office well. She knew the people in the county, and because she knew them, she could serve them better when they had the unfortunate occurrence of having to enter the legal system. Her knowledge of the community and her strong belief in how great Eaton County is what always made victims feel like they were being acknowledged when they came to the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office and ended up in the Eaton County Courts. Jody leaving will be a big gap of institutional knowledge in my office. Fortunately, Jody realized that, and she has been diligently working with her understudy in order to prepare her to take over that job. Jody is the poster child of why we need the funds to recruit and retain good employees. 35 plus years. If she had made it till November, it would have been 36. So 35 plus years as an employee of the county. 35 years serving the citizens of Eaton County. 35 plus years of caring about the victims who, without asking, ended up in our system. That is what the office is losing. And in reality, that's what the county is losing. So Jody, thank you. Thank you very much for all your hard work. I appreciate everything that Jody has done, and one of the things that Jody's had to do in these last few years is deal with the youngsters in our office who are younger than her own children. But in that process of dealing with those youngsters, she actually taught them the necessity to care about the citizens that we unfortunately have to deal with when they come into our system. So Jody, for all you've done for the office, I'll be forever grateful.
Yes, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. And like Doug said, Eaton County has been my second home here for the past 35 plus years. I started in 1988, and at that time I was the youngest in my office. And now I have earned the title of being the oldest in my office. I'm even older than my boss, so.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah, not much. Over the years, I've made a lot of friends and met a lot of people and have seen many changes. And it is going to be very different for me not coming to this place. I'm, been coming here for so long anymore, not coming in, but I look forward to my retirement. I plan to travel more and enjoy time with my family. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Okay, we have one more retirement, and I want to read this resolution, even though she is not here. We really appreciate her service to the county. So this is a resolution for Mary Ann Gay, District Court. Whereas Mary Ann Gay has retired from Eaton County on July 12th, 2024, and whereas Mary Ann worked in the District Court as a deputy clerk from June 30th, 2014, and has retired with more than 10 years of service. And whereas Mary Ann has provided dedicated and honorable service to the residents and employees of Eaton County. And whereas the Eaton County Board of Commissioners seeks to recognize and express appreciation for Mary Ann's years of public service. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners expressed its sincere gratitude for the years of exceptional service Mary Ann provided to Eaton County. And be it further resolved that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and attached to the permanent records of the county on this 17th day of the month of July in the year 2024. Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, next we have up on the agenda is a report from the Spicer Group for the Bank Intercounty Drain.
Evening. My name is Chris Mattson, and I am an engineer with Spicer Group, and I am the project manager for the Bank Intercounty Drain project. And I'll let Stacy introduce herself as well.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Hissong. I'm the attorney for the Drainage Board from Fahey Schultz Bursick Roads.
All right, so we have a brief presentation this evening, so just want to keep pace with it here. So some of the things we're going to go over this evening, and as a matter of update for some, but maybe an introduction to the project for others, we're going to talk about the Bank Intercounty Drain, which is in design in Delta Township. We'll go over some of the history of the drain itself and the project, where we are in design in our scheduling and our process there. Talk about property acquisition that's taken place for the project, utility coordination, cost estimates, and then the apportionment or assessment role that's going to come out of the project before we go to construction. So the first thing I want to touch on is those who comprise the Bank Intercounty Drain Drainage Board. So the board is chaired by the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development by Brady Harrington. And as Special Commissioner for Eaton County, Robert Rose, the Ionia County Drain Commissioner, is a member of this board. And the Ingham County Drain Commissioner's Office is also a member of the board, that seat being held by Deputy Drain Commissioner Paul Pratt from Ingham County.
So I think it's important for everybody to understand, why are we here talking about a drain project? I've been representing one of the attorneys for the Drain Commissioner's Office since 1997, and I have not been in front of this board before to talk about a drain project. I mean, I think that's good news for all of you that hasn't happened before, but we are here today because this is the most significant drain project that we've had in Eaton County, and the cost to Eaton County to its general fund is the most significant drain project that we've had. So we want to ensure that everyone here understands what we've been working on, what the financial ramifications are, what the improvements are to the community, so that if you have questions, you know who to turn to, and none of this comes as a surprise.
All right. So moving next into a little bit of history on the drain itself. So first, just to orient everyone, the drain is located in the northeast portion of Delta Township, and it is an intercounty with Ingham County, so there's portions of Lansing Township that drain into the drainage district. The drain outlets into the Grand River just north of Willow along the west side of Waverly, and you can see here on the map. And the drain flows from south to north. It crosses Saginaw Highway, Michigan Avenue, and St. Joe Highway. The upper end terminus of the drain is in the neighborhoods just northwest of the Waverly and I-496 interchange. So the drain itself was established in part in 1883. And as you can see through the years there's been improvement and extension projects to extend the drain, and it's found its final, or its current extent and its current form through all these projects, the last being an extension in the 1980s. So a lot of this drain hasn't been worked on in an improvement sense since 1960. There were some extensions in the 70s and 80s. However, a lot of the pipe that's in the ground providing service for this drainage district is as old as 1922. Other portions are from 39, 49, and then the more recent improvements in 59 ahead of the extensions, which mainly were new subdivision construction, adding those drains as county drains. One thing that we found in the development of this project and the proceedings early on, when we got the petition started, is the Briggs drain and the bank drain were kind of intermingled. They kind of had a history of having sort of status changes in what was Briggs, what was bank. At one time they were combined. What we had done in the beginning stages here is make the inter-county drain bank. The Briggs used to be an inter-county. It is now just serving Eaton County lands. That gives the Drain Commissioner authority to maintain that as the Eaton County Drain Commissioner without going to a drainage board to make decisions. So that, and I don't know if that is something that was a question for any of the board members tonight, but that was just a big task we dealt with early on, is sort of cleaning this up.
Much needed procedure, a century-old needed procedural cleanup, yep.
Yes. So moving next, I just want to talk a little bit more about what comprises the drain itself. The drain itself is about 6 miles long. Most of that length is in Eaton County. There are portions of the drain that reach across Waverly to the east, just under 100 feet there. So the drain infrastructure split is almost 100% Eaton County. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see the drainage district split. So the land served by the drain, again, is mostly Eaton County, but there's about 80 acres in Ingham County that are served by the drain as well. So you can see there in the graphic, the right-hand portion across the county line highlighted in red is the portion coming in from Ingham County. So one of the things that I want to touch on as we discuss the drain itself is the existing condition and what its handling capacity is, what kind of a level of service that it provides. The current system cannot handle a 1-year storm. So when talking about a 1-year storm versus a 10-year versus a 100-year, this is the statistical chance that a storm will happen in any number of given years. So statistically, a 1-year storm we should experience every year, that size of storm, and in the same way, we should see a 100-year storm, something that severe, once every 100 years.
So to give you an idea, you're reading this as, what does that mean? Does that mean it's bad? Yeah, it does. So when we ask a new development to design for a detention basin, et cetera, we're asking them to design that detention basin for a 100-year storm.
Correct.
So so think about when this was designed, and some of the major pipe that's serving as the outlet was installed in 1922. And think of what the development of this area is and what it was designed for. And some would say even at the time of the design, it wasn't big enough. Mm-hmm. And now we're trying over 100 years later of development in this community, and we have not upsized that pipe in a century. And so when we're talking about it can't handle a 1-year storm event, and I think it needs 4 times the capacity that it has right now just to handle a 1-year storm event. When we're asking other people to design to a 10-year storm event, a 100-year storm event, it's significant.
And just to sort of think about the timeline of development in this area, at the time that the most recent improvement was made, there was a lot of the neighborhoods in this area where the streets and the utilities were built. However, the development on Saginaw Highway was still very sparse. It was still a 2-lane road. The subdivisions hadn't been filled in with houses yet either. Like the streets were built, but not all the houses were there yet. So at the time, it may have been sufficient, but all of the development has happened essentially after the drain was built, and there hasn't been an update since any of that development.
And when you look at the majority of the subdivisions in this drainage district, when you think of a new subdivision that's being built today, all of them have detention basins. Mm-hmm. That's not what we have here. There's no detention basins or there's older subdivisions. This was before detention basins were used, so we don't have anything slowing down or storing water in this. And so we're asking this very old drain to handle much, much more than it's capable of.
Yep. So speaking further just about the pipe size issues, as I mentioned, the most recent improvement project in 1959, constructed in 1960, led to a study in the 70s, and there's a little snapshot of the cover of that report there, to upsize the drain. And the study in 1977 led all the way through the middle of the 1980s before a decision was made to stop the project. So at the time, the project was deemed too expensive, and they halted the project. Now, at the time, there was a need for the project to happen, but again, the project was stopped. So this issue has sort of sat to fester since then. Just a little bit of a graphic here. The pipes to the left in this graphic kind of showing the person standing there. There's a 30 and a 48-inch pipe taking all the water from this area to the Grand River. Just to sort of discuss the magnitude of the improvements needed, you can see to the right, that is the needs of the pipe size to carry this water to the river.
I tried to get him to get a picture of me inside the pipe, but he didn't. Maybe sometime later.
Yeah. All right, so project goals. The 10-year storm design is a very common standard for stormwater system conveyance. This is going to include upsizing the pipes, said most plainly, for this area. What we started out in some feasibility discussions early on, and which has actually found its way into the design, is regional stormwater detention. So the more water we can store regionally, the smaller the pipes get. If we can store the water, it can leave through the system out to the river much slower.
That's so important in terms of the cost of the project. So we got the pipe down to this big compared to what it would have necessitated to be, or been necessary had we not had the regional detention. And so you're thinking, okay, detention versus the cost of that bigger pipe. The cost of the bigger pipe itself is only one component of it. We have to put that big of a pipe somewhere that it will still have the elevation to get through and not cause conflict with the other utilities. So the bigger the pipe to try to fit under a street, that size becomes exponentially more difficult to do. And so regional detention was an absolute must for this project.
Yeah, and without the detention, you can probably imagine everything's in the way underground.
Everything's still in the way underground, but
Yes.
worse.
Yes. Another part of this, roadside infiltration, we're looking for some low-hanging fruit to basically slow the water down. If it runs off the streets and off driveways, can we slow it down before it gets into the system?
I think that's really important for people to understand, is that roadside ditches are not meant or designed to drain people's property. They're meant and designed to drain the road.
The roadway.
And that's it. People think and utilize them to drain their homes, but that's not what they're designed for. That's not what the Road Commission maintains them for. And so we're going to try to multi-use some of these roadside ditches to create more drainage possibilities with the area that we already have.
Yeah, and in a sense, not reconfigure these neighborhoods, but in areas where water is running off into roadside ditch areas, use those to slow the water down and allow it to soak in before getting into the pipes. So to touch on some of the history of our schedule so far, the petition for this project was received at the end of 2021, and there were 2 hearings held to step through some procedural needs: a practicability hearing in April of 22 and a necessity hearing in March of 23. Excuse me. Both of those were held at Waverly High School. Engineering, design, and property acquisition started just a couple months after that. And since then, aside from design efforts, there's been regular coordination with major project stakeholders, utility owners, road agencies.
So we have sent out numerous public notices about this. There was the practicability hearing, there was the necessity hearing. We've been at Delta Township a number of different times. And Commissioner, I promise you, you are going to get a multitude of, I've never heard about this before. I'm shocked, I'm surprised. And so that's not unique to this project. That happens a lot. People don't always recognize the significance of an envelope that comes in the mail. So we want to give as much information to you so you understand when you might get those calls that we are trying to reach out to people to let them know what's coming.
So now looking ahead on the schedule through the end of this year, completing design, getting through our bidding process, completing the utility coordination to a point where we can start construction, getting easements, permits, et cetera. We're looking to bid the project late this year, and construction, essentially might take 3 years to complete, depending on some final scoping decisions, but it's gonna be 2 to 3 year construction period for the project. Some of the impacts to the timeline, this is just some things that we throw out there because there's a lot in our control, but a lot that we're depending on other approvals for. Utility conflicts in this type of a project, we need to work together with the utilities to get things moved out of the way. So working a lot with the utility companies. Easement acquisition is another thing. There are parts of this system that are new that we need to construct in new areas, so easements are required in some locations, and also the permitting. So going through Eagle to get permits for this project.
If any of you have been through that process, you know it's super quick and easy and doesn't take any time. We're navigating through that where we don't think that will be a showstopper for us and keeping still on schedule.
Right. So moving ahead to design status, just some highlights here on the work completed to date, going through all of our survey efforts, some initial hydraulic design and modeling, storage modeling, and those road agency coordination discussions. Essentially what's ahead of us, final alternatives, final plan development, getting the utility coordination to a point where we can go to construction as other parts and pieces are moving, if there's things to be moved out of our way. And those low-impact design elements to try to slow down the water, get some infiltration. One of the things we wanted to touch on, a significant part of the design portion of the project is a property acquisition. So the Drainage District and Eaton County for this project have purchased 6 properties.
So that's in fee, not easements. The district owns these properties.
Correct. Now, they fall into 2 buckets. We've purchased properties for regional stormwater detention, and we've purchased properties to build the drain and for the construction of the drain. So we'll step into the regional stormwater in a moment to touch on the drain construction properties. There were 3 homes in the Thomas L. Parkway neighborhood with the houses built over top of the drain. And with the size of the pipe that we're proposing, the solution was, one of the solutions that we had in front of us was to buy the home and own the property, to remove the home so that the drain can remain in that location. Other options or alternatives were to relocate the drain, put it out into a different location to get from point A to B. That process for 2 of the homes here on the list was a much more expensive venture for cost in basically removing roads and all the utilities there and rebuilding it with a larger drain commingled in there with it. What we found though with the home purchases is that 2 of them were for sale.
4 of the 6 properties on this list were for sale, and so that worked. We're very fortuitous for us, and we successfully negotiated the other 2, and so it went as smoothly as possible in those situations.
Actually, 2 of the detention parcels and 2 of the residential parcels were for sale. So 2 were negotiated directly with the property owners. The other 4 were for sale. So we went through the normal process there. So the next slide here shows just the regional detention and the properties, just the proximity. Right through the center of this image is Saginaw Highway. And the large yellow blotch to the north there is 4300 West Saginaw. There are 2 other properties along Waverly, 511 and 219, I believe, on Waverly. So let's step through each of those.
And that was unusual that we were able to find some. This is a built-out community, so to find an area that you could actually use for detention, that was tricky. We were very limited in the locations where that was even possible in the first place.
Right, so the initial search is where is green space in the drainage district to build detention? And is it in the part of the district that matters? Is it central to the district so that there's land upstream that can flow to it? The 4300 West Saginaw Highway property is built out, however, it was vacant, it was for sale. The owners of the property were seeking redevelopment, and the township was having issues with sewer and water capacity, and rezoning for subdivision wasn't an option. So we took ownership of that. The building will be demolished, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment, but that will become a large regional stormwater pond.
I was going to ask you a question. Do you feel like you've got enough retention, or does this project really call for more?
The 4300 Saginaw property is giving us plenty of storage.
Okay.
Yeah, we feel really comfortable about the amount of storage there.
Okay, good.
So our next slide here, 314 Dibble, 219 Waverly. This is, it's one property that spans between Dibble and Waverly. This is about a 2.5 acre parcel. Again, for just a little bit more regional storage. This is all green space, there's no demolition needed. For this property, and again, very similar, the last storage property, 511 North Waverly, is green space that will be utilized for additional stormwater storage.
So that's next door to some apartments. The owners of the apartment complex owned that property, and so we spent a lot of time with them talking about not only the purchase of the property, but the impact to the apartment building being so close to that. So they were comfortable this would actually be a water feature and not a detriment in terms of having that in close proximity.
Yeah, coordinated the concerns they had with their residents being next to. What they didn't understand what the facility would look like at the end of the day. Would there be noise? Would there be standing water? Would there be mosquitoes, et cetera? So jumping back just to touch on the 4300 Saginaw property, this is a former O'Rafferty High School. The West Side Catholic High School was the original use, and that's what it was built for. It was LaSalle Bank for many, many years after that. Most recently used as just rental suites. And then sold to a company to build a call center right at the end of 2019.
Right before COVID.
So as everything changed, that business model didn't make sense, and they were trying to offload the property. So we're looking to demolish that early next year after bids and contracts are signed. Right now, we're in discussions with splitting and selling off that frontage to make back some money for the drainage district, but also not to have a commercial hole there along the Saginaw Highway corridor. And we're coordinating that with Delta Township. One of the things that we're looking at with the cost of this property, the cost to abate, which you can imagine there's probably not a lick of asbestos in the building, and demolish, it is actually still saving upwards of $10 million due to the pipe size reduction for that amount of storage. And you can see there just a graphic on that stormwater detention area plus the redevelopment area meshed in with it.
So when you see redevelopment area, that's not something that's going to happen by Christmas, not even next Christmas. So this is an area that once we're done with construction, and I want to make sure everybody heard Chris say, this is a 3-year construction project, not 3 years of design, 3 years of actual shovel to dirt work. And so this area will be likely to be used as a staging area during that time period. When we're all finished with construction, then we'll talk about the sale of it. And those funds will go back to the drainage district.
So next, just to touch on some of the major utility and road coordination items, working with Delta Township, coordinating impacts with water and sewer. Consumers Energy has gas mains on most streets that we're going through for this project. The Board of Water and Light, mostly overhead power, but actually large transmission water mains to serve the township. So there's some critical utilities there. AT&T, the most notable communication company that's going to impact the construction. And then MDOT and the Eaton County Road Commission having meetings in coordination with those two groups. Because there's going to need to be some approvals of plans. Big thing that we got off the ground and available for anyone who has questions is our project website. So this has been live for about a month now, and the URL bankdrain.org is available with frequently asked questions. There's a map on the page, if someone wants to see, is the drain in front of my house, the Bank Intercounty drain. There's a lot of storm sewer infrastructure in this drainage district. Most of it is not the Bank Intercounty drain. Looking to understand the history of the drain is available on the page. Some initial preliminary schedule items. Once the schedule is defined by contractors, that information will be
Assessment
plugged in.
information will be on there once we know it.
And contact information, there's currently, and right at the back of the presentation is all the contact info. There's a phone number to call to leave a voicemail. There's email address. There's a contact form on the webpage to plug in your name and your concerns to be followed up with. As construction kicks off, this website will be a hub for knowing where the work's happening now, where the work is happening next, being able to see if there's any road closures or impacts to traffic, where there are detour routes, if any. All of that information will be dynamic and live on the webpage, so you can go in and see where the construction activity would be.
So before we get into the money part, because after you talk about the money part, everybody kind of, we're done with everything else. What's important, what's I think the most important thing for people to understand is the bank is the outlet for a lot of other county drains. And so why I'm saying this way is we're only working on the main drain. We're not working on all those tributary drains. We're not working on the roadside ditches. And so we're providing an outlet. What does that mean? If your tributary drain is not working, you might still have flooding. This is not going to solve all the problems in the world. This is a necessary first step to allow, when work happens on all those other tributary drains, roadside ditches, to provide relief. Will it provide some level of relief despite that? Yes, but we are aware that this is a significant cost to not only the county and the township, but to the property owners. And so we don't want anybody to think that this is going to be a guarantee of no flooding for us anymore. This is a first step. You first have to provide the outlet, and then in future projects, we can start working on some of those tributaries. That is a hard pill to swallow when you see that you're getting an assessment, and so we want everyone to go in eyes wide open that that will be the case.
So getting into the project cost portion of
No, we'll tell them
the
how much it's gonna cost,
presentation.
yeah.
So preliminary estimate of cost, this is an all-in construction plus design and all the fees that we see could be potential for this project at $60 million. And one of the more recent bits of news for this project are the potential appropriations. And I just want to say huge kudos to Connie and her staff for putting a whole lot of effort into making applications for appropriations and funding requests.
It's amazing.
Both
Drain
with the
projects don't normally get grants like this.
Absolutely,
So.
both with the state of Michigan and federally. So as of today, the state of Michigan has written in $5 million in a line item for this project into their budget, and Gary Peters has made a state or a Senate spending request for $6 million for the project, which there's still some process ahead of that money. But we're coordinating with those groups to learn what kind of things are going to be required to use that money, make sure all of that is in place and we're not stumbling over any sort of procedural items to be able to apply that money to the project. So that money as we look at it, is basically going to go over top of the project and lower the overall cost.
So for a regular drain project, normally it's the assessments go, there is no, 100% of a drain project is paid for by the levying of special assessments. And so it's MDOT for benefit to state highways, county for benefit to county roads, and a portion of that goes to the road commission, to the township for benefit to public health, and the rest go to property owners. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. Those are the buckets we can obtain these funds from in levying and apportioning the assessments. And so this is kind of where we're at with this.
So the first step in taking the total project cost and splitting it out, the counties split, decide on a split between counties. Currently, it's a 95-5 split. That apportionment between counties is going to be reevaluated by the Drainage Board.
Don't expect 50-50 here, folks. It's going to be pretty close to 95-5.
Yeah, it might go a little bit one way or the other, but that's a pretty good number there. The project is planned to be financed over 30 years.
So we're expecting to get this to bid before the end of the year, and we're gonna talk about this. So when we're talking to property owners and what to expect, what your controller is ready to expect, what Delta Township is ready to expect is, we're gonna, the first time this will hit winter taxes, and that's when drain assessments are levied, will be December of 2025. We're gonna bid it, finance it, hopefully by the end of this year, and then it won't hit winter taxes this year, it'll hit winter taxes next year.
So diving into the portions of the Eaton County assessment roll, the portion of the total based on road runoff for county roads is about 17%. The portion based on runoff for MDOT highways is 2%. And currently, the project is looking at a 25% apportionment to Delta Township for public health. So right now, these numbers are based on those runoff calculations when we're talking Eaton County and MDOT. These numbers are not all in. If there's some sort of request, special request, say from the road commission or from the township, or MDOT for something to be included in the project specifically at their request, then those costs are directly passed on to that agency.
So we're looking at 60 million. Our crystal ball with contractors, you never know, so that's not written in stone. And then hopefully 11 million off the top, and then 95% of that goes to the Eaton County side, and then about 44% of the Eaton County side costs are gonna be paid by MDOT, the county and the township, and then the rest of that to the property owners.
So just a little breakdown on our last slide here on the assessment roll. Mostly residential parcels and properties in this drainage district by count. Some of those 7% are commercial. Now the commercial properties are a lot larger than the residential properties, as you can imagine. There's no industrial or agricultural properties. Church properties are liable for drain assessments, special assessments, so those will be included in the apportionment roll. Properties owned by the township, county, federal government, and public school districts are exempt from assessments.
So churches and private schools are not exempt, and so St. Gerard is one of the biggest property owners in this district, and the most work is happening literally in their backyard. So, and they're not used to paying property taxes, but they're gonna be, liable for a special assessment, a significant special assessment, because they're one of the largest property owners. So we have had multiple meetings with their staff, with the diocese staff and representatives to go through the process with them, and have answered a number of different questions with them. We're continuing to work with them and get them as mentally prepared as possible for the financial impact, and then also to ensure that their students are safe and that our design, they're aware of our design parameters and how that will work in coordination with the use of their properties.
So at this time, we'd like to answer any questions around the room.
Commissioner Mulder.
Could you, I don't understand the township portion, the 25%. I mean, obviously, they don't own 25% of the land, but they're being assessed 25%. How does that work?
So in every drain project, we're talking about apportionments, a percentage of the cost. And so in every drain project, township, city, or village with lands in their municipal borders receives an at-large assessment. So it's not based on what properties Delta Township owns, those properties are actually exempt. This is for the benefit to public health. And so those assessments range throughout the state from, 5% or so, all the way up to 50%. 25% is probably a little bit more in Eaton County than you see for a regular at-large assessment, but we have worked, Delta Township recognizes the financial impact to its property owners, and we have been meeting with them from the very beginning, utilizing that number so that they're mentally prepared for that.
The assessments that go to the property owners, usually drain districts include the tributary portions, but this one does not include the tributaries, just the people that are direct on the bank?
No. Thank you because I want to make sure everybody's clear. Can we lean it back to the slide that has the district? So property owners within the drainage district are gonna receive an assessment. So the drainage district is the same as the special assessment district, is the same as the watershed. So if you're in the watershed, then you're gonna get an assessment for your contribution to the system.
Okay.
Now, what I meant by the comment of if you're right on the drain and there's tributaries, I'm saying there's differences in the amount of relief. If you're outletting right into a drain that just got fixed, you're gonna see more relief than if I'm outletting into a drain that goes into a drain that goes into a drain that's just been fixed. Because there's more opportunity for obstructions between the two. So everyone who contributes water is going to pay, but when we do the methodology for the assessments, they may not be the same because we're gonna recognize that. So let's say you both own a 1/4 acre lot in the district and you're right on the drain and you're a few drains off from it, you're not gonna pay the same assessment. There's gonna be a factor that recognizes that situation in this. There's gonna be different factors based on the type of property, acreage, the location in the district, and so a number of different factors go into the assessment.
Okay, I understand now. That's, so everybody that actually water leaves their property into this drain is gonna be assessed to some degree.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Haskell, you had your hand up, and then Commissioner Proright.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I had the privilege of being a legislative aide representing the area back in 2012, and I remember fielding complaints about this project then and forwarding them on to the county, so I can appreciate the how this has been a long time coming. However, this district is home to a lot of, I would say, more economically vulnerable populations. So I'm just, kind of curious if you were putting yourselves in the shoes of one of the commissioners talking to constituents in the area who are concerned about the cost of this project. I mean, what would you say to provide confidence that this project has, little to no waste in it? Or do you foresee any possible savings along the way that we could realize?
So first of all, this project is gonna be spread over a 30-year time period, recognizing that we have to make it as affordable as possible. And so no one ever likes to pay drain assessments, and the frustrating part as a practitioner in this area, and I'm sure as an engineer, is like if it's a water or sewer, you're paying every month or every quarter or every year, and that charge that you get saves a little bit for when there's improvements, and so you're just paying the same amount and you never see a big change and you're all set. With drains, you could pay nothing, or just a tiny little bit for 10 or 20 years, and then all of a sudden we have to do a project and it's, significantly different, and that's the way the statute is set up. And so as a homeowner trying to budget, that is very frustrating. So we are trying to balance affordability, and I can guarantee you the first meeting we have at the township is they're like, no Cadillacs. We want you to make sure that you're preparing for the future, but even with, just the cost, the pipe alone is in the tens of millions of dollars for this, just the pipe. So we are trying everything we can think of to try to cut costs. And so the balance of that is if your house is flooding and you go to sell that, you have to report it. And so sometimes that makes a house unsaleable in today's market when you have to provide information that it's flooding. And so what do you do in those situations? And so this is the best balance that we felt that we could make under the circumstances.
Yeah, in that meeting with the township early on, it was right at the beginning of the project because we're talking about converting uses of properties in the township for detention, and that was right up front, top concern with them is. We would hope that the project is not trying to build frills in here and just get to the point, find a solution and get that built as economically as possible. So that's been the sort of guiding light the whole time. Find the solution and the cheapest way to do it. The storage properties provide a lot of reduction in cost, as the cost is the pipe, and if the pipe is under a street, rebuilding that street. So limiting that and being able to reduce those sizes as much as possible has been the name of the game with the design so far.
So projects can become unwieldy, and so I pretty proud of how this project has went in terms of, we're gonna set a project schedule, we're gonna set a cadence of meetings with the township, with the utilities, everything else to ensure that we move forward on that schedule to keep everything in line. And so far, we've been able to follow that. But that doesn't mean some people, not some people, you're gonna have, it is a significant cost. And we're trying our hardest to keep the cost down.
Just two quick
There's no
follow-up questions.
sugarcoating that.
The 30-year term, is that typical, or is that not
It's the
typical?
longest you can go.
Okay.
It's not typical.
It
no.
is not typical. And so for people who can afford to pay their assessment in full to avoid interest charges, we'll have an opportunity to prepay for that. But that is the longest we could stretch this out. We've been working with the county's bond council and municipal advisors for the best economics of that as well.
Okay. And then for the retention ponds, you said that utilized or caused quite a few savings. Do you have a number to that? Like if we had not done?
Our initial guess at that is it was a $10 million savings for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Even after the cost of the purchase, cost of construction, and the cost of tearing down the building.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not the expert on drains, so I just have some real basic questions. One is there's also a private school through a church over on St. Joe, and I can't think what it is, but some students on my street went there. So I know it's there. So are you working with that church as well on St. Joe?
So we have met with St. Gerard's. We haven't met with other churches yet because this is right in their backyard. And so we went through that, and I think they will be probably one of the biggest assessment payers in the district. Total St. Gerard, because they own a number of different properties surrounding the church and school buildings. But we will look at, with Delta Township, what stakeholders they think we need to have special meetings with in terms of these upcoming assessments.
Okay, because they're only a couple of blocks down from Home Depot going west on St. Joe. Okay, so then the next one is Richard Street, Theo Street, those type streets off of like a place called One North and the A&W and things like that. Those used to be in my commissioner district, and when I did go around, people complained all the time about the streets flooding and also backyards, you know, basements blocking or being orphan drains that would come up in their basements. So, but they're not part of the Banks drain according to the way the...
They're part of the watershed, but
That's
they're
why I
not
was
part of where
trying
we're
to
doing
understand.
work.
Right.
Okay.
We're providing a better outlet for the drains that come in from that area, but we're not doing work from Saginaw Highway to their basement.
To Myers, basically.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so they're going to get some type of side assessment because they're going to get benefit?
No, so we're gonna take into consideration if you're on a tributary drain, if you're in a different drain, so you're paying on the Stacy drain and the Chris drain before you get to the Bank drain, we're gonna take that into consideration and making a recommendation for the assessments.
Okay, so they will have something that's an assessment.
Everyone in this area is going to get an assessment.
So when you mentioned the Briggs drain that was separated off from the Banks drain, the Briggs drain people as well will get
yes.
some type of something?
Yep.
Yeah, so they're gonna get an assessment, but they're not going to get work on the Briggs drain, because that's that requires a separate petition.
But they're going to get something.
Oh, yes.
And Briggs goes all the way to Elmwood, so those houses back in there. Okay, thank you, because I was, in my mind, trying to get a
why
idea of
we're
all
here.
these streets.
We want everybody to have a good idea of what's going on, because you will get phone calls.
So those neighborhoods, Ranker, Harriet, Arlene,
Yep.
Theo, Iris, those
yeah.
are all, actually, those all have county drains on those streets, but they're all separate from the bank. So those are all systems. Most of them drain into Briggs and then into the Bank Intercounty. So those are all separate tributaries to the bank.
We can foresee, once we get the outlet done, you have to have something for it to drain into, that in the future, there'll be projects on the Briggs and those tributary drains, but we have to get the main part done first.
Now, there will be benefits to the fact that that outlet is available far more often than it is today, with the size and the constriction of the current bank intercounty drain. Those backups can come from two areas: not enough capacity, the system's full, there's nowhere for the water to go, but also obstruction. So as obstructions pop up, the drain office is chasing those on all those county drains and trying to pull those out. The capacity issue is not, there's not a solution there unless there's ways to improve those drains through petition processes. So this main drain being improved as the outlet for all of these systems will provide more service to all of these properties. It is, though, at the mercy if there's a capacity issue with the drain itself, and then chasing those maintenance issues, those obstructions, roots growing in the drain, getting those cut out. The drain office is very good at cutting roots out of that neighborhood. Yes.
Mr. Moudry.
I just want to say that the Spicer Group, and Chris in particular, has been great to work with. The drain office has been great. There's, I think, Stacy, could you touch on how this all started? Because I think it's your expertise. What got the ball rolling on this?
So in order to, the drain code is so unique from other public infrastructure projects. And so without any action from property owners or municipality, the Drainage Board is limited to a very small amount of work that can be done on an annual basis. And it's also limited to just repairs and not improvements. And so unless someone petitions this Drainage Board to have anything take place, it cannot. And so we're gonna have people show up and say, you should have taken care of this. If you'd have taken care of this, then we wouldn't be here today. Well, this isn't a maintenance issue. This is a undersized infrastructure issue in this situation. And so there's not much we can do about it until someone petitions. So finally, property owners petitioned to have this happen. There was a practicability hearing, which I feel like is like a word that's not in the dictionary, but it is in the drain code. And so a hearing was held. Does it even make sense to look at this? And then that was found necessary. Then a preliminary engineering was done to give people, this is going to be expensive to do this, and then decide, is it necessary? And we, at the meetings, it was not hugely attended, but the people who were there had stories that were, hard to listen to, of the flooding that takes place, the anxiety that they have every time it rains about what it's going to do to their basements, to their front yards, to the possibility of selling their home. And so the bucket has been kicked down the road for a very, very long time, and so now we're finally to the point where we're at.
There was a petition.
Yes, from property owners.
Yep.
Yep,
In the district.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when I first got involved, I got the letter from the drain office to attend a meeting at Waverly High School. Okay. I went to the meeting, and there was roughly 30 people there. Okay. And a lot of the people were couples. So there was maybe 15 households represented there. And at the time, we were talking possibly $40 million, way back when. Okay, and so naturally you're thinking, oh, what's the assessment? Because there's 2,000 properties involved, and it's $40 million. Some guys took out the calculator and figured out what their assessment was going to be, but it's not done that way.
No.
Okay.
No.
And so I live in the southern tip of the bank's drain, okay, by 496, okay? And we have no flooding problems at all there, okay? And my neighborhood actually is west of Home Depot. So I thought, well, geez, looking over the Home Depot property, in my property, they're gonna pay like 25 times what I'm gonna pay if everything is equal, okay? Well, not exactly. And after going to the meeting, I have now 2 rain gauges, okay? When we start bumping 2 inches of rain during a storm, hey, it's gonna affect my neighbors, my constituents down by Saginaw, which is the area that you were talking about, Brandon. The 10-year improvement that we're going to do gives us to what, 3 inches and some change
Yeah.
per storm? Okay? And, you know, I know people at the meeting said, well, why don't you just, I want a 30-year, you know, flood. And they said, and you guys basically said, you can't afford it. We can't afford to build something like that. And so I appreciate your candid honesty with what we have now. But I talked to some of my neighbors. I said, you know, the ones that I didn't see at the meeting. And I said, well, did you get the letter? What letter? I says, the letter from the drain office. I says, about the meeting over at Waverly High School. Oh, I looked at it and I thought it was a meeting for Waverly High School. We don't have kids, so I just, you know, recycled it. Yeah, well, it's not exactly Waverly High School. It's about us.
The next letter they get will have a dollar amount on it. And I think maybe if they open it.
I can imagine when the assessments come, you know, it's going to be an exciting meeting.
Yeah, and one thing to understand is, with regard to that, the Eaton County Drain Commissioner has a conflict, and so under the statute cannot make the apportionment decisions. And so we have a special commissioner coming in to make the apportionment decisions for this. So,
He's done a good job.
Yep.
He's done a good job. And, let's see, what else? Oh, I was at the inter-county meeting, and that's how Chris and I got to know each other. But there was a lot of information there, and I just want to say that I was the only person there. I got one-on-one with the drain commissioners, and it was an enlightening experience.
I know, we're way more exciting than people think.
Well, when you're talking about money, you know, the dollar signs and stuff, you get my attention.
Yep.
You know, but I just want to thank you for the work you've done, and I can't wait till the next meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Brayler and then Commissioner Augustine.
Well, I think Commissioner Moudry kind of touched on where my concern was going to be, so I think I already know your answer. Approximately 4 years or so ago, I read an article that indicated that 98% of the scientists in the world said that the tipping point in regards to climate change was 2030. The United States and the rest of the world has done absolutely nothing since then, and the chances of making the actions and making the changes that we would have had to make in order to avoid that tipping spot is probably null and void. We are already experiencing storms every 2 years that you say we shouldn't suffer, except for maybe every 20 years or longer. The scientists have indicated that when it tips, the weather will be more harsh. And so I look at this and I wonder if you're not spending $60 million and you're going to come up in 5 years short. And you're going to have similar problems with the type of weather that I suspect that we will start to, and I believe are already experiencing to some degree, and it will only get worse. So, how do you tell the people who are going to pay for the next 30 years or the people that buy from them, the homes that will have a 30-year debt, that this is actually going to make of something more than a marginal difference?
So some of the things that go into just our design approach is not using anything but the most recent rainfall data. As far as, you know, if we're talking a 10-year storm, we're talking about a depth of rain. And that depth number for 10-year storm has changed a lot over the years, and it's going to continue to change. Those are being reevaluated and redefined. One of the things that we talked about in coordinating for the request for appropriations was to build climate resiliency into this system and into this area with this project to protect for those future rain events. So, or the increase in the severity of the future rain events. So that's been something when we're looking at a 10-year storm. This isn't like last year's or 10 years ago's 10-year storm. This is more with the more up-to-date rainfall data, so that, you know, it's something that's applicable, you know, just to start the conversation, is applicable for the storms we're seeing today.
So this is what I do for a living, all over the state. And this is a concern that I see coming down the road too. And the problem is, and the commissioner's got it right, it not only is it gets to the point where it's untenable from the cost perspective, but to try to get that size of a pipe underneath a road with all the other utilities is near impossible. So what I expect to see, Commissioner, is there's some legislation to amend the drain code that's currently before the House called, basically it's two different bills, but it's amendment of Chapter 22 of the Drain Code. And that's more managing water than draining water. And so I see additional tools besides just putting it in a pipe coming through. And so it would be more watershed management type of activities. So rain gardens, green space being used, all kinds of different best management practices by individual property owners to try to store water throughout the entire watershed instead of sending it to the drain itself. And so I anticipate, as we see these storm events becoming like this, and it's not necessarily more drain, it's getting a season's worth of drain in or rain in an afternoon. And you can't really design for that. And so what I think will happen is, here's our system, here's our big pipe, and now every neighborhood's gonna have green roofs on commercial buildings, you know, green space in terms of utilizing all the roadside dishes, those types of activities taking place in addition to this is what I see happening. To try to design for that size of a storm is near impossible.
I don't share your optimism, but I appreciate your answer.
We're gonna try. Sometimes it has to happen before, unfortunately, before we get there.
Commissioner Augustine.
Yes. Has there been a,
Go ahead, Barbara.
oh. Okay. Has there been a border determination for this county drain?
So it's an inter-county drain, and so the Drainage Board has a hearing of necessity, that, much like a Board of Determination, and they have met twice. It's a two-step process for inter-county drains, practicability and then necessity, so yes.
Okay, so we got Commissioner Augustine, then Commissioner Drosha, and then Commissioner Moudry. So go ahead. Just trying to keep things in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question was similar to Joe's in the sense that I was just concerned that, you know, one of the issues, one of the reasons you don't finance something over 30 years is because you don't want somebody paying for something towards the end of that and not getting anything from it or needing to be assessed again for additional work. So I think you answered the question that I was interested in your answer of Commissioner Brailer's question. So, but I assume that that's part of the reason why you typically don't go 30 years on a project
Right,
like that.
and this is concrete pipe that has a design life.
75 plus.
So okay, good. That was.
I'll try not to be the engineer so much now.
Well, you never want to have the usefulness of the project run out before the financing is complete on it. So that is a very sensitive thing when we're looking at the design.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Drosha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Interesting report here. I've got a few questions to ask. One is, how much of this drain is above ground?
It's all storm sewer.
It's all
in
storm
its
sewer.
entirety.
With the exception of the detention.
The new properties for
No,
detention.
I'm talking about the existing drain today.
All of it.
All of it's below ground?
Correct.
Which adds to the difficulty of changing things.
It does.
Okay, thank you. My next question is there any sewage into this existing drain?
Not that we've come across. We have talked with the township about water getting into the sanitary system and additional infiltration into their system. But we've not come across any sort of illicit connections to the storm sewer.
Okay, so obviously any connection that's found will be eliminated and then.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know that was a big deal for the city of Lansing. I didn't know how far east or west it extended. Also, across from the property on Waverly Road, near the apartments, opposite that street in the Ingham County, I think that was an old golf course there to the east. Isn't there a swamp down in there?
There is a lot of low ground on the east side of Waverly, on the west side of that old golf course property.
Was that also considered as retention?
We had some thoughts early on about coordinating with that property owner and getting easements to possibly extend detention through that route, through that portion of the west side of that golf course. There's been some general, just slow-moving developers on that side of the line, to the point where a decision and coordination on something that they're not focused on designing for themselves, because it would be to benefit for their development, but also have a benefit for the drain if we were to enlarge those areas to provide more detention for the drain. We've reached out to them to see if that would be an option to those developers over there, and that project is getting pushed down the road to a point where they're not interested in.
Yeah,
Well, I would
the other difficult part with that area is it's regulated wetland.
It is, yeah.
But it still is a flood area, and it's directly related to this drain according to your map, isn't it?
They're going to be paying an assessment.
Oh, I know they're paying assessment, but my concern is in the future, with future development, to Joe's point, are we building this drain adequate for future development?
Absolutely, and one of the things that Stacy had touched on early on is the standards for detention are going to be held for that developer for that project. So we are not going to be designing a drain that allows that side of the county line to be completely paved and piped directly into the system.
They'll have
They'll be coming off at a
detention
much
requirements.
smaller rate that would be appropriate for a development meeting the standards of Ingham County for stormwater site plan.
And only
design.
a portion of that property drains to the bank?
Correct.
If you want to talk about that
Yeah,
for a
the
minute.
southwest corner of that property drains to those low areas. Those low areas today are connected, if they fill up enough, are connected and will flow into the bank today. But, coordinating with the Ingham County Drain Office on their review of that site, they're not letting anything happen to develop to come into the bank intercounty drain unless there's coordination and improvement to the drain first. So if they were to just connect to it today, it would cause a lot of problems because there's no capacity. And they recognize that, and they're not allowing it at this time until there's improvements made. But those improvements, they wouldn't get a massive amount of capacity available to them to just run
They're gonna have to
everything off.
detain on
They're going to
site.
have to build probably more ponds to hold water before it outlets, and it's going to outlet at a very slow rate into the bank system.
Yeah, so normally the design in Eaton County, and this is similar in Ingham County,
Mm-hmm.
is that you have to do a pre-development rate.
Correct.
All right, and then to allay Joe's fears somewhat, your existing drains are 30 and 48 inch, and if this is to scale, I'm assuming this is what, 96 or 108 inch drain that you want to put in?
Correct.
What's the increase in volume,
The increase.
off the top of your head?
Increase in capacity, I mean, we're talking, I believe, 100 cubic feet per second, currently between the two pipes. And, the 10-year storm is about 8 times that amount.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And when he said 8 times that amount, remember, this can't handle a one-year storm, so
Correct.
it's significant, more than that.
All right, we'll take one more with Commissioner Moudry, and then I think we'll start wrapping this up.
Okay, since I'm the last one, I'll revert to the educational part. There's a difference between detention and retention, and people all the time use them together, but they're not. Retention is you retain the water. You want water to stay. Detention means the natural state of the pond is dry. And there was some concern with neighbors saying, well, I really don't like the idea of having a pond there. Well, the natural state is that the rainwater comes in, it evaporates or settles, and it's dry most of the time, hopefully. Correct, Chris?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So the ponds and the storage facilities that we will design have positive outlets. So the water can get in and it gets out slowly. So those are going to be designed to let all the water out. The large pond itself will likely have a pilot channel through the bottom. There's likely going to be base flow running through that at all times, just because of the routing and how it's connected to the rest of the system. But as it fills up and slowly drains out, it will go back to just having that base flow run through the bottom.
So think of it like a bathtub. Retention, there's no plug. Detention, there is a plug.
Yeah.
And so these are all detention, not retention.
So the function of retention is infiltration capacity and allowing that water to soak into the ground. There's far too much clay around Eaton County for that to be possible in most locations. So we're not relying on the infiltration capacity of the soil. We're providing a positive outlet for the stormwater to leave and head to the river.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just one last question. It's just, if a person is in this and gets assessment for 30 years, my understanding is if they sell the house within that 30-year period, they must pay off their assessment. Is that correct?
Yes, unless it's in the negotiated otherwise in the buy-sell agreement.
All right, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Stacy. We really appreciate all the information and your time. Nice, Joe.
All right, that brings us to the first limited public comment.
I see why we don't usually do drain presentations. If I were up there, I would have moved the judges up.
Oh, you're so kind.
Well, this has to be a record, I gotta tell you. I don't think we've gone this long.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Jan Cunningham. I'm Circuit Court Judge and the Chief Judge of the Trial Courts. I know most of you. Tried to meet those of you that I haven't met before. I'm here tonight for happy news. We have a new circuit judge, a new benchmate who replaced Judge Mauer. Yeah. Judge Morton. As you know, Judge Morton was a district court judge, and I'll let her say something in just a second, but she was appointed and is now the circuit court judge and has moved up to the second floor. And her spot was filled by the appointment of Adrienne Van Langeveld. And Adrienne is a former Eaton County prosecutor. She's on the parole board. She was elected to the city council in Charlotte. Both of them live in Charlotte and have their families in Charlotte. So we're very excited, and I'll give them just a second to say something briefly, but we're getting to full capacity. Just like the drain. Yeah, exactly. Yes, but we want to retain them. So,
yes, I would like to be retained. Well, I just wanted to say hi to everybody. I know I've been here a couple of times before since I was elected a few years ago to district court. I just recently got the appointment from Governor Whitmer to the circuit court bench. I'm very excited to be working with Judge Cunningham and excited about this new role. I am having an investiture on August 8th at 3:30. If you would like to attend, we would love to have you. I'll send out some invitations, but a save the date, so to speak, right now. I would love to see you all there, and if you ever want to come watch court or learn more about what we do, I'm always available, so, well, when I don't have court. So, all right, thank you.
And good evening. I know some of you, but not all of you. So hi, I'll tell you I will be brief. My name is Adrienne Van Langeveld. I have lived in Eaton County for 15 years straight. I started off my career in Eaton County with Judge Eveland as his law clerk in 2008. I was 23 years old. I was studying for the bar, and Jane Echtenaw and Karen Newman interviewed me. Judge Evelyn wasn't even there. He was at a funeral, and they picked me. And so I am so excited. I feel like I'm coming home. I went to the prosecutor's office in Mecosta for a brief year after I clerked for Judge Evelyn. Jeff Sauter hired me to come back to the prosecutor's office, and so I was at the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office from 2010 to December of 2020, when I left Doug Lloyd and Chris Anderson sitting over there, who are wonderful mentors. And I went to the parole board, where I've been 3.5 years interviewing prisoners and deciding whether or not they get paroled. So I was appointed also by Governor Whitmer a few days after Kelly was, I had to think about that for a minute, after Kelly was appointed. And so I am so excited to be joining the bench. Like I said, I do feel like this is kind of like a homecoming. I'm excited to get to know all of you a little bit more. And my investiture is going to be September 5th. I will also be sending out more formal invitations, but Thursday, September 5th, and I think Judge Morton may not know this. We're doing it in your courtroom.
No, you're doing it in hers.
We'll talk about it. No.
Afterwards, I got the email.
Yeah, okay.
We're doing them
And
the
reception, yes. And then the reception both upstairs. So I hope all of you can make it if you can, and we'd love to see you. So thank you so much.
Congratulations and welcome. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? All right, seeing none. We are going to move on to the committee reports. And first we have Health and Human Services with Commissioner Lotzenheiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did meet. We have no action items. We heard a report from Barry Eaton Health Department. Again, they kind of covered a lot of ground on all the programs they've got going on right now. All very good information. Also heard from in regards to the substance use misuse strategic plan, kind of got our first glimpse at their rough draft, if you will. They kind of referred to it that way, working with MAC and the health department in that. Commissioner Mulder pointed out in that meeting, it's a good point for everyone to kind of understand when we're kind of contemplating how to utilize the resources from the opioid settlements. We're one of the few counties that has kind of gone this route, that has gone the kind of bringing on a consultant type setup of how to, what's the best way to use these funds, because they are obviously earmarked and restricted to how they can be used. So we are in the minority of doing it this way, but we do feel that we're going to have the best options laid before us by this committee. So it was a very enlightening presentation, and that concludes my report.
We were recently informed that we are the only county.
The only. All right, there you go. It is, and again, I would encourage you to use your iPads and go back to our Health and Human Services. The packet is in there, or the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Lotzenheiser. Next up, we have Public Safety Committee with Commissioner Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public Safety met on Thursday, July 11th. Just two things real quick before I get into my action items. One, I'd just like to continue our support for Eaton County Sheriff deputies who have been inundated with 911 calls, from talking people off bridges to doing CPR to chasing the bad guys. Please keep them in our prayers. Second thing, Kelly from the 911 Center says the floor project for the 911 Center is just about completed, should be done by August, and we're taking that place from the 90s to the present day, apparently. All right, so as far as my three resolutions, I'll be quick here. First resolution I have is to amend the Sheriff Department fee schedule. We'd like to take it from the current $7 up to $10. This would be like when insurance companies call in, lawyers call in for our fees. We're significantly lower than other places in the around us, so I would like to move that.
Moved by Commissioner Barnes, supported by Commissioner Haskell. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Second one, resolution to approve Semco, which is an energy company, license agreement. There's no payout on this. This is basically a license agreement for them to use our subsystem for their service, and I would like to move it.
Moved by Commissioner Barnes, supported by Commissioner Haskell. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
All right, third, last one is a resolution to approve the memorandum of agreement with the American Red Cross, basically Eaton County American Red Cross of Mid-Michigan chapter have agreed to enter a memorandum of understanding for corporate cooperation support to assist individuals and families impacted by emergency disasters. And I would like to move this.
Moved by Commissioner Barnes, supported by Commissioner Rogers. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Next up, we have Information Technology and Communications Committee with Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on July the 3rd, Wednesday afternoon. We had reports from our Communications Director, Logan Bailey. He presented his monthly report, and we talked about the newsletter, which is going well. And if you're not aware of the newsletter, it's online. It's good reading. And then we talked about the recycling event coming up in August and gave us some more information on the media. Then Technology Services Director Eric Daly presented the department's monthly report, and he also presented to us their 24-25 budget request, and we forwarded that on to Ways and Means. Along the lines of information, we, as commissioners, had a booth at the Eaton County Fair where we gave information as to the county's services, and I think it was well received. We had many, many people stop in, say hi. We had a lot of literature from many different departments. It was all good stuff, and so I think that we should continue that in the future. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Public Works and Planning with Commissioner Rogers.
I don't have any resolutions for you tonight, but Rachel Murray from the Conservation District was present and announced the state of Michigan restored their funding for the next budget year. So she was pleased with that. And we had, from ETRAN, we had Brad Funkhauser that attended and gave us a semi-annual report. And ridership for the Shalat Connector route is at an all-time high, and the new Grand Ledge route is doing well and continues to increase in ridership. He added ETRAN received a $1.6 million grant from MDOT and to look at micro transit, which works like a public urban live on demand. And that completes my report, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. And next, we have Ways and Means Committee with Commissioner Mulder.
I will attempt to continue with the brief statements and get through this. Our first action item is to appoint our MERS representatives. Jeannie Pearl Wright as the officer delegate with Andrea Cherwinski as the backup and Nolan Brown as the employee delegate with Jen Hankins as the backup. I would move them.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Mulder, supported by Commissioner Haskell. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
The next one is a resolution to, for the clerk. Ms. Morris is here. She knows all about this, about early voting grant reimbursement of $110,000, and I would move this.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Mulder, supported by Commissioner Augustine. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
The budget amendments were varied and all over the place, and I'm going to kick this one to the controller to define a couple of them because a lot of them are cleanup kind of amendments.
Yeah, toward the end of the year, we start working on cleaning up the general ledger for any additional revenue that may have come in or any expenditures that we need to adjust. So the first one is just thank you to Treasurer Robinson for the work that he's done on investments. Interest and dividends were up by $1.2 million. Second one is related to personnel. The next three is related to personnel or expenditure changes that have occurred throughout the year that we can't account for in a smaller departmental budget. The circuit court, we received funding for attorney fees, so that is just an expense and revenue.
Corrections, we have an increase in the amount of inmate medical expenses, so we needed to move $100,000 to cover those. Unfortunately, we have exceeded the veterans' burial expenses, so we needed to move that. We also had the health insurance fund, which we've all been following closely, has actually gone over in our self-insurance. Something I think we talked about the first time that occurred was last year. So our finance director wanted to ensure that we were working to fund it. So she wants to move $132,000. You'll see there the contingency fund, we're exhausting to cover these. Parks and Recreation, we are looking at replacement of the stairs at Fitzgerald Park, and Ben Youngs is working on getting some quotes. The first one that came in was 100, so not to delay the project, we wanted to make sure that we had approval to expend up to 100,000. The housing was project costs have gone over and exceeded the grant expenses that we had allocated, but it doesn't increase anything other than utilizing fund balance. Construction code was just a vehicle replacement that we made on a lease. Opioid settlement is related to the additional settlement revenue, if I can talk, that has come in this year that we don't always know what the amounts are going to be, so we wait until we have the revenue that it's actually come in. That's obviously a good thing for that fund. Donations in both sheriff and youth facility, those are budgeted funds, but it's money that comes in from individuals, and we have to adopt a budget for those funds. So they've spent a little bit more than what we had anticipated. And then the drain debt is just to recognize owner prepayments and revenues.
I would move the budget amendments.
Moved by Commissioner Mulder, supported by Commissioner DeRosa. Any questions? Commissioner Augustine.
Yeah, just a brief question. Connie, I understand that the settlement revenue for the opioids is restricted. The interest that comes off from that settlement is that we earn, I assume that's restricted as well, or are we able to?
No, it is not.
That is not restricted.
It is not restricted.
But at this point, we're moving it into that same fund.
That's correct. It's all in one fund, Fund 284.
But if a board decided to utilize that, then you could move it back out, or are we, by putting it in there, are we essentially restricting it ourselves?
Well, you are. You're allocating it, but you could do what you needed to do with it. But any expense that you were going to utilize, you could pay out of that fund, so you would be able to show, you know, what the expense was for. But if you needed it for general fund monies, you would have to transfer it out.
You could, but you could transfer it out. Okay, that was just my question, just to make sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Haskell?
Yeah, hopefully a quick one as well. I see general fund contingency reporting, starting balance 150,000, now we're down to zero. Is that concerning?
Well, normally, no. I would say no. So typically every year we allocate about 150,000 for unexpected expenditures. What we could have done would have been to take it from fund balance carryover, but since we have that, we just want to expense all of it out of contingency. So no, it isn't concerning. Is it sad? Yeah. I mean, we'd like to not, you know, have to spend that money down, but it's stuff that you set aside contingency for.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
The last thing I have here are the claims and purchases, and I would move them.
Moved by Commissioner Mulder, supported by Commissioner DeRosa. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries.
In the end of our meeting, we had some discussion about the current budget, and Melissa and Connie discussed in detail what's going on with our upcoming budget, where we're at on it. We are reaching a point where we can finalize a budget, but we have a lot of small things to work out, and we have a lot of philosophical things to work out, I think, about what the presentation will look like. So we're still under determination whether we're going to have our meeting on the 26th of this month. It hasn't been formalized that we're going to have a meeting yet. But
It's formalized.
It's finalized.
it's finalized?
It is.
We are having a meeting on Friday, the 26th. Okay. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Need you there.
It's on my calendar.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mulder. Next, we have the administrator's report with Controller Selby.
Talk really fast. First of all, I wanted to just piggyback on what Commissioner Mulder said. After the meeting, we had a discussion and determined that it would make sense to have departments come in and talk about their services. So our executive leadership team met today and discussed how they would give presentations. We have created a form right during the meeting that they'll be able to address what they do and then highlight some of those things when they come in. It was really good discussion that we had as a group, and I think everybody will be very energized, correct, everyone? The audience? Smiles. There we go. So we're looking forward to that, letting you know what we all do. On another note, if you haven't heard yet, you'll see news on Keeney Environmental Area in Bellevue that had its boardwalk partially destroyed. Actually went out there and looked at it myself. Pretty sad. Park staff went in and cleaned up and secured the area. Logan's been doing interviews on that, and they right now they believe there could be a case related to this, but we don't have any information. It's an active investigation. Resource Recovery Department received a new trailer. We had thought about having it parked out back here so you could see it, but there is a ribbon cutting that will be held August 1st in Vermontville. Township and Jared and Logan are working on getting that information out. This week, we were contacted by LEAP and Ingham County about an opportunity to partner with Tri-County in relationship to My High Office and what's called a Mitten Grant. It's the Michigan Inclusive Training, Technology, and Equity Network Grant. If we were awarded that, it would go to either LEAP, just received an update from Claudine on that, either LEAP or Ingham County. They would administer the grant, hire people that would actually go out and try to deal with rural areas and training people on broadband and their equipment within their house and access. So it's kind of a good thing that would be about $856,000. Claudine's nodding, so I'm good there. Right now, we are actively bargaining with the 4 remaining union groups. We have 3 scheduled next week, so Chairman Mott, Ben, and I will be very busy next week. And so far, that has gone very well in discussions that we've had. I am done.
Thank you, Controller Selby. All right, next up, Commissioner Haskell.
For the presentation of the services by department, would it be possible to get, and I know this sounds pessimistic and doom and gloom, but a look at what services might be vulnerable should our fixed tax limitation millage fail?
So the discussion that we had to not upset our workforce, right, and the public, is to let you know what services and let the public know what services are available, are out there, and services that we haven't been able to improve over the years, rather than for a department to come in and say, this is a non-mandated service and it's at risk, because then you have those employees who are going to leave. So we wanted to focus more on what the services are and not what the impact could be. The impact will be stated by our elected officials when they go out to talk. So that's really what we're looking at. Does that make sense? Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Next up, we have commissioner comments. Any commissioners have anything they want to share? All right, I got a couple things. So the Fireman's Fest in Olivet's coming up the last Saturday of this month, which is next Saturday, 27th. I think the parade starts at 1 p.m. and then they have really good fireworks, so that's in the evening. The other thing, on August 1st, I got an email from Scott Brooks and the I think Sheriff's Department and Charlotte Police Department are having a full active shooter drill. Am I correct? At Charlotte School, Sheriff. So if anyone's interested in that, I'm sure contact Connie and get you in touch with that. I attended the one they had in Eaton Rapids, and it's very eye-opening. So I'm hoping to make this one too, but I just found out we have a ribbon cutting too, so on that day. Yes, Commissioner Rogers.
I got a card today about the Dyer Limestone Kill dedication on Friday, August the 9th at 6:30 PM in Bellevue.
Yep.
And that is very interesting. I mean, the history of that, I think it's worth attending.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be interesting, and we did a fundraiser there. The Eaton County Historical Commission raised funds there to help restore that. And it's learned a lot of history about that. In fact, some of the limestone that is in our Capitol came from that kiln. So if you can make that, it'd be great. Commissioner Mulder.
I wanted to say that I was at Fitzgerald Park last Saturday. We had our annual car show. It was a great event. There were a couple hundred old cars there. The park was packed, and it was a beautiful day, and it really highlights the beauty of our park system, and it gets a lot of people into the park that wouldn't be there otherwise. So it was really a great event. So good time had by all.
Good. I also want to piggyback on what Chris and Stacy from Spicer Group said about Connie and her staff about getting funds for that bank intercounty drain. That's huge, and they did a lot of work, and they did the county a very big service by securing those funds. So thank you. All right, moving on. Next up, we have unfinished business.
None.
None. Old business.
None.
All right, and under new business, we have a resolution of, to support the fixed tax and limitation millage in November, and I'm going to call up Prosecutor Doug Lloyd. Oh, yeah, Commissioner Toomey.
Yeah, I was just going to ask who's offering the resolution? Who wrote it?
Doug Lloyd, our prosecutor.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Doug Lloyd. I am your Eaton County Prosecutor. And Commissioner Toomey, it is I who offer it. And I will explain to you why. I have become, in a sense that's probably not pleasant to some of you, the face of supporting this tax limitation millage. And as your elected prosecutor for the last 11 years, as well as being an employee as an assistant prosecutor for that for almost 25 years, I have watched this county do nothing but run continuation budgets. My office has survived 2 recessions. I have listened to the commissioners that have been on this board and have come before you talk about survival. And that's all we've done for 25 years. We have not improved, we have only survived. And so in the very beginning, when the Controller's Office, Controller Sobey, as well as Commissioner Mott, suggested this, the Financial Stability Group suggested this, I was all on board. Because while I am a citizen of Eaton County and a resident of Delta Township and pay more taxes than I want to pay, I also realize that I live in a home that I've lived in for 24 years, a home that when I moved into it, I had the realization that I would have to maintain that home. And guess what? No one has offered to volunteer to come and maintain my home for free. It takes money to maintain that home. money that in all reality we have not actually dedicated to our home here at Eaton County. And we have definitely not dedicated it to the 400 individuals who come here every day and dedicate themselves to the citizens, two of which you got to meet tonight, who have worked here over 25 years and dedicated their lives to helping the citizens of Eaton County. And so I became a supporter immediately in regards to this. I was present at the County Tax Advisory Limitation Committee and offered my support at that time. I was present at your board meeting when I urged you, all 15 of you, to support the decision that the Tax Advisory Committee had made. And now I have volunteered my services as your elected prosecutor to go out to each of your communities, to your townships, to your cities, to your villages, at their meetings and speak. But part of what will be easier for me is if I'm able to say that this bipartisan group came here tonight, read a resolution, found that it was appropriate, and all 15 of you supported it. And then after you support it, what I will expect from each of you, because as I know most of you do, you already attend your local meetings, that you will stand with me. In reality, you will stand with the sheriff as well, because the sheriff and I stand together in the support of this millage, and that you will be present and accounted for when I show up to those committee meetings. So, commissioners, if I might read the resolution. Eaton County Board of Commissioners, July 17th, 2024. Resolution to support a fixed tax limitation millage in the November 2024 election. Whereas the Property Tax Limitation Act, being Public Act 62 of 1993, MCL 211.201 et sq. allows for separate tax limitations, and whereas the county faces a projected budget shortfall of $23 million for the 2026 fiscal year, and whereas the County Advisory Tax Limitation Committee has met and has unanimously voted to recommend a fax tax limitation millage for an indefinite period or until altered by the voters of Eaton County, and whereas the Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to place the tax limitation proposal on a ballot for public consideration, therefore, be it resolved that the Eaton County Board of Commissioners sees the important role the county government and staff play in providing services and public safety to all residents, and so strongly support the tax limitation proposal at the election on November 5th, 2024. And I would request support, a motion and support in regards to this resolution.
I would move it.
I support it.
Supported by Commissioner Haskell. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Mulder.
A list was passed around about public meetings at townships, villages, and giving us opportunities to make ourselves available and be at these meetings. And I, for one, plan on visiting a lot of these meetings, especially the ones that I regularly see. I know the people, they know me, and I'll pop into a few other ones that aren't my regular area. But I would be more than happy to support Prosecutor Lloyd in telling the citizens how important this is and how necessary it is for the benefits that they receive from the county at this point, and how those could be severely limited without this particular tax limitation proposal going down. So I'll be there with Commissioner, or with Prosecutor Lloyd.
And I'll also say that I've already sat down with staff, and we've gone through this list, and I've offered a lot of my days and nights in addition to promoting this because it really needs our voices to be heard throughout the county. Commissioner Rogers.
I think a point that all citizens understand, and I didn't know this until this has all come up, is that all a sheriff is required to do is maintain a jail. Well, anyway, that's what I was told, and so I'm telling them, if you want road patrols, you have to vote for the millage.
Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Holmes.
As I've talked this in township, one person brought up the treasurer of the township saying she wanted to understand, and it's just for each of us to get that information, so that question probably would come up again, why from this fiscal year, it's going to jump so drastically. And I don't know if I have a good answer. I told her to call Melissa. But that's something as a question I think probably will come up, why does it so exponentially climb? So just to gather that information wherever we can and know ahead of time.
And that's a good point, Commissioner Holmes, because Melissa has opened up her doors to anybody that wants to talk with her about this. So anybody you talk to, you don't have a clear answer, direct them to Melissa and tell them, that our doors are open, we're transparent, and we want people to be educated. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and I'll see you on the campaign trail.
All right.
Chairman.
Yes.
Logan, you put together like FAQ little flyer for us, right, at the last meeting? So I'm assuming something along those lines was addressed on that. Yep, so I know they already got some literature ready.
Good point, thank you. All right, that brings us up to our second limited public comment. Anybody would like to address the board?
It's the only time you get to talk as an elected official. If you're not a commissioner, it's the only time. I was just going to point out, Commissioner Haskell, that obviously if you have questions of what could go wrong, I would be happy to talk to you alone. It's also, I will give Controller Sobey as well as her staff great credit in the conversations we had today. And I think you're going to actually hear of the things that we do now. And obviously the thing to consider when you listen to us on the 26th is that a lot of these things would have the opposite effect, that even the things that we try to do now, if the millage were not to pass and the allocations were to increase, as far as the revenue, expenditures, these would be services that would be lost.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting until Wednesday, August 21st. This meeting is adjourned.